All right, let's get into one of history's most fascinating and, frankly, complicated figures, John D. Rockefeller. Today, we're really going to try and get to the bottom of his legacy. Was this man a builder, a great benefactor, or was he something else, an architect of massive, unchecked power?
I mean, seriously, how do you even begin to make sense of a guy like this? On one hand, he's this titan of industry, but on the other, a completely ruthless monopolist. He's a philanthropist who literally changes the world for the better, and yet he's also a master of control. These are the huge contradictions we're going to unpack together.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. We are not looking for a simple hero or a simple villain today, because you're not going to find one. Instead, I want you to think of this as us together mapping a constellation. We're going to explore all the different points of light and all the shadows that make up his incredible story.
Okay, so first up, let's look at Rockefeller the builder. To really get it, you got to picture the America he was living in. It was a nation just exploding with industry, and it was hungry for fuel. This is where Rockefeller was an absolute game changer. Through his company, Standard Oil, he didn't just sell oil. He basically reinvented the whole system. He made it way cheaper and way more reliable for literally everyone. He was a pioneer of ideas like vertical integration. That means owning the entire process, from the oil well all the way to the lamp in someone's home. And he mastered economies of scale, making his operation so insanely efficient that nobody, and I mean nobody, could touch his prices.
And you could see the results everywhere. This wasn't just some abstract business stuff. Because of what Standard Oil did, factories could suddenly run all night. Cities could light up their streets. The whole engine of American industry just kicked into a higher gear. He was, quite literally, lubricating a nation's growth.
But, and it's a big but, that amazing efficiency came at a huge cost. And that brings us to the second, much darker side of the story, the long shadow of the monopoly. Because, you see, innovation was only half of the equation.
This really shows you the two sides of the same coin, doesn't it? The innovation that brought everyone cheaper energy, well, that was fueled by an incredibly aggressive strategy of just swallowing competitors whole. Those brilliant logistics, they were backed up by some of the most ruthless negotiations you've ever heard of. He didn't just outcompete his rivals, he basically erased them.
So this timeline gives you the whole arc of his empire. For about 40 years, he was on top. Then, the U.S. government finally stepped in. In a landmark case, the Supreme Court called Standard Oil an illegal monopoly and shattered it into dozens of smaller companies. You'd recognize a lot of them today. Think Exxon, Chevron. But here's the wild part, the great irony. Rockefeller kept his shares in all of them. And once they started competing with each other, their total value skyrocketed, making his personal fortune even bigger than it was before.
So, what do you do after you've built one of the biggest fortunes in human history, using a mix of pure genius and brute force? Well, Rockefeller entered a totally new phase. He went from accumulating all that wealth to systematically giving it all away.
You can really think of his life as a two-act play. Act 1 was just this relentless, laser-focused mission to accumulate. But Act 2, that was something else entirely. It was this massive, methodical project of distribution that pretty much invented the whole idea of modern philanthropy as we know it.
And the scale of his giving was just mind-blowing. He wasn't just writing checks. He was building institutions from the ground up. He basically created the University of Chicago out of thin air. He established what's now Rockefeller University, a global powerhouse for medical research. His money helped wipe out diseases like hookworm and yellow fever. His fingerprints are all over the DNA of modern medicine and education.
Okay, so here's where the story twists again. When someone gives away that much money, you have to ask the critical question. What was really behind it? Was this pure, simple generosity? Or was there something else going on?
Now, there's a more critical way to look at this, which is to see his philanthropy as a kind of system maintenance. Think about it for a second. If you create better schools, what do you get? More efficient workers for your industries. If you improve public health, what do you get? A healthier, more productive workforce. And of course, giving away mountains of cash is a very good way to fix a public image that's been trashed for decades.
But, and with Rockefeller there's always a but, that cynical view doesn't tell the whole story either. There's a really strong counterbalance. I mean, his money helped wipe out diseases in parts of the world that had absolutely nothing to do with his business. And the universities he started, like the University of Chicago, they became famous for independent critical thinking, not for pumping out compliant little workers. The results just don't fit into a neat little box of control.
So where does all this leave us? As we start to wrap things up, it becomes crystal clear that John D. Rockefeller is one of those figures who just refuses to fit into our simple moral boxes of good guy or bad guy. This is probably the most important takeaway. You have to hold all three of his identities in your head at the same time. He was the builder, who literally powered a nation. He was the monopolist, whose actions forced the government to invent new rules to control corporations. And he was the benefactor, who created a whole new template for giving that continues to shape our world.
And that's really the bottom line. Whether you admire the guy or you despise him, you simply cannot deny his influence. It's not something you can just approve of or dismiss. It's baked into the very foundations of the world we all live in today.
Just think about it for a second. The way huge corporations are structured today, the very idea of a massive charitable foundation, our global energy grid, how major research universities work, our public health systems, all of these things carry the indelible imprint of John D. Rockefeller, for better and for worse. And maybe that's the best way to see him in the end. He's not some big, obvious landmark. He's more like a deep, powerful current running just beneath the surface. You can't always see it, you don't always hear it, but it has shaped and moved everything around it. So the question isn't just about who he was back then. It's about us today and how we navigate the world that he had such a massive hand in creating.